You know, there was an amazing article in the New York Times, and I'm not going to, about 3 years ago, where they interviewed about every top business or business person or medical person, everything other than the arts that you can imagine in the United States, and every single one of them came from some sort of disciplined art background. They either played in the orchestra as a kid, or they had hours of study within some sort of music or some sort of art form, because there's something about art that opens your mind and allows you to then take in lessons. And it can be lessons about humanity, or it can be lessons about math. The thing that people don't really think about when they think about art is how it makes us more intelligent and more compassionate and more accepting. I see people differently than I think I would have if I hadn't gone into the arts in general. I see humanity differently. In acting, you don't just learn lines and say them. You learn why people say certain lines. I feel like when people are impatient with certain personalities or certain types of people, I feel like my whole life has been about understanding why those people behave the way they do, differently than me, but not wrong. And I feel like I can look at them and say, well, this is what's going on. And then I get along with people most of the time, you know, and I think it's because I do what I do for a living. You know, it's a big question of nurture versus nature, because you know, I have a brother and a sister who love music, but it's the furthest things from their mind to be a performer. And I grew up in sports, and I played a lot of sports, but something from the minute I was born, there was something about music and singing, and my mom's parents loved music. They played music in their home. My grandmother played the piano, but aside from that, my mother was not the kind of mother putting me into dance classes, and although I did some, I just loved music, and I just feel like I was born that way, honestly, because I was the 10-year-old who said, I want voice lessons, and I want to sing in the school play, and I had other friends who could have cared less. It was really hard to move my junior year of high school, but I knew of Florence Birdwell, who was my teacher at OCU. I knew of her since I was 5 years old, because Susan Powell was from Elk City, and she was a Birdwell student, and she was Miss America, so I thought that was pretty cool. So when we moved to Edmond, my father, we moved here for his job in a new law firm, and he was working with a man whose wife was a Birdwell student, and I was able to take voice lessons from her. Which eventually led me to taking from her at OCU. But there was also a theater teacher at Deer Creek named Dixie Jordan, who was a fascinating woman and kind of opened my eyes and opened my mind up to acting, not just singing, but really trying to get in the middle of a character and act. And so that's where everything started to come together and gel. When I went to OCU, I didn't know exactly what I would do with music. I just knew that I had to have it in my life. And I met Mrs. Birdwell, and her fierce passion and energy and view of the arts in a person's life was something I'd never really experienced, and it became heavier and bigger and bolder in my own life because of her. She's a larger-than-life kind of character, and also someone who spent her life in the arts. I had never met anybody whose whole life was the arts were a hobby, you know, the way I was raised. Music was something to enjoy on your off hours. The idea of making a living or living your life within the arts was a brand new idea to me, and she made it seem possible. Oklahoma is a place with beautiful people. And now New York is a group of, as you know, the melting pot of the world. So it's generalizing to say that everybody in New York is liberal, and that's generalizing, because that's just not the way it is, just like Oklahoma. And yet when you go into the arts, they think, oh gosh, from Oklahoma. First of all, they say, wow, Oklahoma. Secondly, they say she must be Christian, which is the truth, but she must be judgmental about it. She must be a Republican, which is often the truth, not for me, but it is. She must be goody-goody, which, you know, they can think that, that's fine with me. But in the arts, Oklahoma has not been known to be one of the groundbreaking, cutthroat, dig deep into our souls kind of artistic place. You know, it's something I do feel like, and this is just the honest truth, I do feel like I've had to climb up out of an assumption many, many times in my life and say, take me seriously, because there is an assumption that it's not the kind of place that would put out a person who is a deep thinker and an artistic person and a compassionate person. And I think that's wrong, but that's the way it is. And I wish that that wasn't the perception. I felt when I was growing up like there were arts, but I did also feel like being an athlete was just as important. And I played a lot of sports because of it. And I don't think that, I know boys weren't in dance. And gosh, do I work with some of the most talented male performers in New York City who I think to myself, where did you come from? Where you were allowed to learn to be this beautiful dancer all your life, and they think I'm crazy. What do you mean? It was a great thing to do, and I knew people that wanted to do it here and didn't, would never have, and that is a limit to me that I wish wasn't there. There's a misunderstanding about what it means to want to be artistic, because it's a beautiful thing. And I think that people that are afraid of that kind of emotion, I don't want us to be. I want all the beauty to be seen, you know, and everything gets stereotyped. This whole, you know, we're in it right now in our country, like this place is this and they all feel this way and this place is, but that's not the truth, you know. The community here that I knew in college and I still know, and I've been back with them doing this Christmas show this month, this community of people, it's just as artistic and creative, and all the teachers here, and it just doesn't, it's not as many, you know, that's all.